Hello and welcome to Friday Live. I am your host, Strata lawyer Amanda Farmer. It's Friday. We are here for the wrap up, the catch up, the week that was in Strata. We're heading out to the Your Strata Property Facebook page. Fingers crossed, that's what's happening this week. We're heading out to LinkedIn and also out to YouTube. I'm looking forward to catching up with so many of you. There's a bit that's happened in our Strata space over the last couple of weeks, a little bit to talk about. I'm going to take you through. Always love being here with you on a Friday afternoon. If you're here live, feel free to give me a hello. I can see those eyes coming on in, which makes me think we don't have the Facebook gremlins that we had a couple of weeks ago. You might have seen me here on the page running a test broadcast with the team yesterday, making sure that the live was showing up where it's supposed to on our page, the place that we're sending everybody, and telling you all to go and watch when we send our invitation email out. For some reason, 2 weeks ago, Facebook didn't want to cooperate, and only some of you could find that live video, and others were left wondering where Amanda was. Thank you so much for your kind comments and assistance, and so many of you have let me know that that test worked well yesterday, and it's fantastic to have you all here with me today. Rochelle is helping me out here in the background, is going to let me know how it's all going, but I can see you coming in, so I think you're here. Ready Strata is saying happy Friday. How you doing, Ready Strata? I'm glad you could find us here on the page. Anyone else coming in live, feel free to give me a hello. We got a bit to cover. We're going to swing around to this week's podcast. We're also going to have a chat about the announcement that was made by SCA, that's Strata Community Association, New South Wales, early last week. So it was since our last live. Everyone's been talking about this for a little while now, but it's been our first opportunity to be here live and take the temperature of the room. SCA, New South Wales, banning insurance commissions for its members from 2026. I'll take you over to the media release, explain that a little bit to you, and also take you over to some commentary that's been happening in our space since that announcement was made. Seems everyone's got an opinion on this change. Let's have a talk about that. And I have a case for you, a New South Wales Civil and Administrative Tribunal case, NCAT case. And I pulled this one out because this discussion that is the subject of this case is also happening over in our members Q&A forum at the moment. Yes, it is a hard flooring, noisy flooring case. And when I saw it as one of the recent cases that had been reported coming out of our New South Wales Tribunal, I thought, oh, that's a good one to unpack. There's a few juicy pieces in that one, so we're going to talk about that today as well. So big agenda for us, and here you are coming in saying hello. Debbie, good afternoon. Hey, Peter and Elaine, who are in Des Moines. Love hearing from you. Welcome. Kristen is here saying thanks for today's live. Looking forward to it, and happy Friday to everyone. Awesome. Okay, now one thing that I did when we were troubleshooting our Facebook gremlins yesterday, I did come across was that apparently there is a setting on your Facebook accounts that you can choose to make sure that you do get notified each time I am going live here on the page. So we usually schedule our Friday lives in advance. You'll see a little notice with our live logo that pops up usually on the Thursday afternoon, letting you know that it's happening and what time it's happening. And Facebook, we tell you in our email, if you're receiving our emails, that as long as you're following the page, Facebook will notify you when we're going live. Not the case necessarily. Facebook chooses whether or not to notify you, even if you have followed the page. But there is a way, apparently, that you can tell Facebook that you do want to be notified each time this page or any other pages or groups that you follow that you're interested in. You want to make sure you don't miss any live streams. You can toggle on this setting in your Facebook account where you can choose to get notified every time that page is going live. So I thought today I'll just quickly, it'll only take me 2 minutes, show you how to do that in your Facebook account. I'm going to show you how to do it using my own account, which might take a little bit of dexterity here. And I'm just going to turn this light off so we don't get too much glare, because I'm going to show you, if you go to the Your Strata Property Facebook page from your Facebook account, and I'm showing you here on my phone, but I think it's the same setting on desktop, and you can see this little button here, following. So that shows that you're following the page. If you're not following the page, there should be an option there to follow the page. Go ahead and follow us if you'd like to keep hearing from us. If you hit that down arrow that says following, you'll get follow settings. And you'll be able to choose here live video down the bottom. Choose live video. And then you get some options. And I've chosen here all notifications, which means all live video notifications from this page. Every time I'm going live, you'll get a notification from Facebook that will tell you. You might have it set to off, so you don't receive notifications when I'm going live, or you might have it set to highlights, which I believe is Facebook will just suggest to you. It will decide whether or not it wants to notify you when I'm going live. But I recommend, if you do want to be notified when I'm going live, you don't want to miss out on these live chats. You can always catch the replay for only a couple of weeks. Facebook is keeping them up. That's not up to us. Facebook is only keeping live videos up for a couple of weeks. If you don't want to miss it live, then make sure in those following settings, then when you've chosen live video, you've then gone to all notifications and you've got that one chosen. Okay, so you might tell me, yeah, Amanda, I know how to do that. That's always been like that, and I've always had that setting on or off or whatever, however it suits you. Just turn my light back on. But I only discovered that yesterday when we were troubleshooting our Facebook Live problems. Okay, let me know. Let me know if you need any more help with that one, and we can help you out to make sure you get those notifications. I can see your comment there, Rochelle. Thank you very much. That's noted. Hey, Better Strata. Great to see you too. Looking forward to the session. All right. So this week's podcast episode was all about getting cyclone ready. We might live in a part of the country where we think, oh, it's not going to happen to us. We'll tell that to those who live and own properties on the Gold Coast. And ex-tropical cyclone Alfred, that came as a surprise in March this year. I interviewed on the podcast this week Associate Professor Jeff Boughton, who is from the James Cook University Cyclone Testing Station. Now, Jeff was a real hit at the Strata Impact Conference on the Gold Coast earlier this year. I was moderating a panel that Jeff was sitting on, talking about the topic of the panel was the not so hypothetical, because it happened. It happened earlier this year, and so many apartment residents on the Gold Coast and surrounds had to get ready. They had to get ready for that cyclone that was coming. And a lot was learned, lots of lessons learned, plenty of, well, not plenty, but more time than usual, perhaps, to prepare for the event. So lots learned about preparation. That might not always be the case for all of us. So Jeff is sharing on the podcast this week, episode number 462, some really simple steps that you can start to take now as owners, as committees, residents, strata managers. You can recommend to your buildings to make sure that if that weather event happens, and they're happening more and more frequently, how to keep more water out as best you can, and how to keep people safe during these severe weather events. And something that Jeff raised in the chat, you'll hear me say this on the podcast, the pedestal tiles. He mentioned pedestal tiles on balconies, which are increasingly common. And I'm seeing this too when I'm working with owners who are doing renovations, buildings that are doing balcony re-waterproofing, and contractors recommending these pedestal tiles, which are not, as I understand it, are not cemented down to the slab or glued down, or however tiles are applied these days. And owners go for them. They love them because it makes the area easier to clean. You can actually be lifting up tiles and cleaning under them, as I understand it, and it's a little bit cheaper than the old school method. But what Jeff points out in this chat is that these tiles become deadly missiles when you have high wind events. And that was something that he was particularly worried about, looking at what could have been the possible impacts of Tropical Cyclone Alfred earlier this year. So that's something to think about. I'm thinking of 3 or 4 at the moment, buildings that have varied their works contracts when they've been told by engineers or by builders, hey, why don't we use these pedestal mounted tiles instead of what we were going to do? We can save tens of thousands of dollars here with these tiles, probably not thinking about what could potentially happen in the future with a severe weather and wind event. So you might want to be thinking about the location of your balconies. What else is there to make sure that those tiles are not going to go flying off and injure somebody or damage property? So that was a big concern of Jeff's that he raised in the podcast episode. And of course, maintenance, doing what we can now to make sure that our buildings are as secure and structurally sound and watertight as possible is going to put you in good stead if you end up having to battle one of those events. So podcast episode number 462, we've got the link to that one getting popped into the chat shortly. If you haven't checked that one out yet, go ahead and do that. Jeff's coming in saying, hi. Hey, Jeff. Hey, Sam. I see you there. Awesome. And there is the podcast episode popping there into the comments. All righty. We are warmed up and rolling along. Let's have a chat about that SCA announcement. 2nd of September, so Tuesday a week ago, we all heard from SCA. What I might do actually is take you over. I did post this on the page, but in case you haven't seen it or had a chance to read it, I will take you over to the actual announcement. I think I'm sharing something already here. That is not what I wanted to do. Here we go. Alrighty, let me know if this comes through. SCA New South Wales to phase out strata insurance commissions. You can all see that one. Awesome. I can see it here on my screen. Team is telling me we're good. Excellent. Here's what's happened. From the 1st of January 2026, SCA is going to begin a phased replacement of insurance commissions for strata managing agents. Bear in mind that this is only going to apply to SCA members, and not every strata manager in the state is an SCA member. Lots of them are. You might know if your strata manager is or not. This applies to those who are and want to continue, let's say, being SCA members. SCA is going to spend a significant amount of time and resources, we're told, supporting members, including with an updated agency agreement. So SCA members, you may have noticed, use a template agency agreement that SCA allows them to use. They're going to support members with a new updated agency agreement, which they're going to send out before the 1st of January. And maybe there's members who want to transition away from accepting insurance commissions earlier than that. So if you're new to this space or new to this conversation, until now, many strata managers have been receiving commissions from insurers that subsidize their management fee. Lots of discussion, lots of debate in the industry about whether that is proper, whether that should continue to happen, whether that places strata managers in a position of conflict, and a fair amount of research and consultation about this question from New South Wales government as well. And that research and consultation is continuing right now with the Productivity Commission, having a look at this question of whether insurance commissions should be banned on as a matter of law, whether we should have reform that bans insurance commissions. SCA New South Wales has jumped in ahead of what I imagine they expect will be legislative change to say, well, if you're a member of SCA, we're going to take a stand, we're going to take a lead on this, and we're going to say our members will not be able to accept insurance commissions to subsidise their management fees. So SCA have said this is a milestone moment in strata. This is going to be a phased replacement of insurance commissions. So what you might find is that you have maybe just within the last couple of months, entered into a 3-year contract with your strata manager who is an SCA member. That contract has a fixed management fee and then allows the strata manager to also receive a commission for any insurance policies that are placed. That contract can, if you and the strata manager so choose, continue to run in that way for the next 3 years. But then when you enter into, or if you decide to renew that contract, enter into a new contract with the same strata manager, if they are still a member of SCA, then they won't be able to accept that insurance commission in subsidising their fees. So that's what they mean by phased replacement. It's not that all current contracts are out the window on the 1st of January and no insurance commissions will be paid from the 1st of January. It's going to slowly roll out as those new contracts get entered into and replaced with these new arrangements. So Robert Anderson, SCA New South Wales President, says that the decision to make this phased transition in relation to insurance commissions hasn't been made lightly or quickly. This is about transparency, trust, and showing leadership. Strata managing agents should be proud to talk about the value they bring to customers and why they should be paid to carry out these critical tasks in relation to strata insurance, and this reform will deliver on that. All right. There is some independent research that this has been based on from SCA New South Wales. And as I said, there is a State Government Productivity Commission investigation, consultation happening at the moment in New South Wales. And a lot of my friends and colleagues have been speaking to the Productivity Commission. I will be travelling to Sydney over the weekend to attend a meeting with the Productivity Commission, along with a group of other strata lawyers, members of and representatives of the Australian College of Strata Lawyers, to talk about the impact if insurance commissions were to be banned. We were to have legislative reform to ban insurance commissions. What do we think would be the impact on owners, on managers, on the strata sector? So we bear in mind that this change is being made by SCA ahead of the results of the Productivity Commission's work. And some have said it's brave on the part of SCA New South Wales to come out and take this stand. Came as a bit of a surprise, I think, to some. I'm not a member of SCA. I don't sit on the board of SCA. So how SCA New South Wales made this decision, but I imagine they were hearing from members that members were already moving towards this kind of arrangement with their remuneration, the way that they are paid for their services, and perhaps hearing from other members that they wanted SCA to take a strong position on this. They are a membership organisation, so I imagine that it was their members who were pushing them to take this stand. Not everyone agrees that this has been a good decision or the right decision for SCA. Before I get to who perhaps has a different view, I do want to take you through those who have been supportive of this position. The Australian College of Strata Lawyers has released a position statement essentially reiterating its call in March 2024. We came out, and I say we, as a fellow of the college, in March 2024, we came out calling for strata managers to stop this practice of accepting commissions and other third-party benefits, recognising that even if those types of payments were disclosed to their clients, that does not cure the inevitable position of conflict that managers can end up in when they accept payment from someone who is not their client. We repeated that call in September 2024 after the Strata Trap program came out, calling on reform, calling for governments to implement reform and enforcement around commissions and related party payments. And we see this Strata Community Association New South Wales announcement as being consistent with what we have called for and representing some meaningful progress towards more transparent, fair and sustainable strata sector. Now, the Owners Corporation Network, the OCN, David Glover from the OCN welcomed SCA's decision, while also noting that other forms of conflicted remuneration also need to end, and that it's important that we don't forget about those other forms of remuneration that strata managers may be receiving from other related third parties, from other third-party service providers, and that conversation doesn't come to an end just because insurance commissions may have been banned, at least from SCA New South Wales's perspective. And that's a comment that has been echoed in some other circles. I'm going to share with you here an article from Insurance News, I believe it is. Insurance News. I'll just grab that one. We have a link to this one, I believe, if you want to check this one out. Real risks remain amid the New South Wales Strata Commission changes. And this article explains a little bit about these other forms of remuneration, other benefits that strata managers may be getting. This is not just about insurance commissions. Scrutiny will still be needed. The Australian Consumers Insurance Lobby says through its chair, Tyrone Shandyman, who has been a guest on the podcast previously. Tyrone says, my view is that the savings will flow to consumers. We're going to talk about that. And I think there might be some questions here from owners about that. The savings will flow, says Tyrone, to consumers. That being said, there is a real risk that strata managers could still receive financial benefits via related party structures. That's what he's told Insurance News. We are already seeing instances where the strata manager owns or is not at arm's length from an insurance brokerage. In those cases, the brokerage could continue to charge standard commissions or leave commissions unchanged, with the financial benefit flowing to the related brokerage rather than the strata management entity. But where those parties are related, then ultimately the strata management entity is benefiting from that arrangement. And from a legal perspective, I say, raising questions about whether that strata manager might be conflicted when it comes to certain advice they're giving their owner's corporation client about its insurance policy and where and how it should be placing that. So that's the Australian Consumers Insurance Lobby speaking to Insurance News and just highlighting that insurance commissions are not the beginning or end of this conversation. And that is a comment and a warning that I've heard in more than one place recently. Heading over to what's happening on LinkedIn and some comments. As I said earlier, not everyone has been supportive of SCA's position on this, including some very, very big players in the strata management industry. Here is a comment on LinkedIn from Bobby Lehane. And Bobby Lehane is the CEO of Pika Group, the largest, I believe, strata management company in Australia, or managing the most number of lots through its subsidiary strata management companies. So Bobby's commenting on another person's post supportive of SCA's announcement. And Bobby says, as someone who's worked in P&L roles in insurer, agency and strata manager, I know that the profit margins of strata management businesses are significantly less than insurer or agency and are in continued decline. If this change is bluntly implemented or rushed, driven by uninformed feelings as opposed to facts, insurers and agencies will optimize their profit, while consumers and strata managers will be significantly worse off. Not a great outcome for anyone. So let's give the Productivity Commission time to do its job. So that is the work that I mentioned earlier that the New South Wales Productivity Commission is doing, trying to work out what the impact of removing these commissions would be on the industry as a whole. So that's a pretty loud and powerful voice in Strata. Bobby Lehane there, CEO of Pika Group, and other criticisms that I have seen are along similar lines, thinking that SCA New South Wales has moved too quickly and should have waited for the Productivity Commission's findings. Other comments here that I've seen on LinkedIn, this is Matthew, who is a body corporate manager in Queensland, I believe, calls this a decision made without thought. Disclosures need to be clear, as with any product, and some are ruining it for the others, by which I think he means some are not properly disclosing and that's a problem. SCA New South Wales will lose what member base it has. From what I've seen in Queensland, a lot of companies use SCA agreements and amend them to suit, such as rollover clauses or extra fees. Will SCA enforce this or not as it relates to major players? So, a few strata managers there off their own bat. And I'm not saying that Matthew speaks for Whittles at all, but making their views heard there. Insurers coming out, what I've seen from CHU, from Kimberly Johnson at CHU, applauding what SCA has decided to do. Well done, says Kimberly, for demonstrating leadership on this important issue for the sector. So CHU, happy with this decision. And what I just saw, I think today, and I've just added this in at the last minute, I saw from our friend Michael Tees. His newsletter is coming out tomorrow, and he is going to be sharing his views on this. 1 week after SCA New South Wales announced the end of insurance commissions, pressure is mounting. Members are nervous. Big firms are silent, or maybe not the biggest firms, and tough questions are piling up. Will other states follow? Will members and sponsors walk? And what about brokerage interests and other related sources of income? So we keep seeing this come up, this question of, all right, we're going to deal with commissions, but are we going to deal with those other sources of income that are propping up strata managers and strata management fees? The bell can't be unrung, thinks Michael. There's not going to be any backtracking here. Read about what will happen next in this Saturday's issue of the Strata Professional. So that's Michael's weekly, I think it is, newsletter, the Strata Professional, which I do encourage you to subscribe to. And Michael does a great job of teasing us on a Friday what's going to be out in the newsletter on the weekend. You can get that straight to your inbox if you are on Michael's mailing list. I think we have a link that we can pop into the comments here if you're not on Michael's list to go and subscribe. Free subscription, so you can get that Saturday morning newsletter. I will certainly be reading it and hear what Michael has to say. But here's the thing. We have been talking all about this impact on strata managers. We've been hearing voices from brokers. We've been hearing from lawyers. What about owners? What is it that you are thinking? What are your questions? What are your worries about this? I can see a couple of comments popping into our chat here. Jeff is saying, sounds like smaller lots will pay much more for insurance. It will take much the same time to arrange insurance for 6 units as it would take for 206 units. Ouch. Maybe that's the case, Jeff. Maybe it's the case that smaller blocks have, the insurance commissions on smaller blocks have been subsidizing the work that's done for larger blocks. I've definitely heard of that happening in strata management companies, where the strata manager looks at the entire portfolio and looks at the money that it might be receiving in insurance commissions from everyone, and considering that you might be paying a certain amount for your small building, and that's subsidizing the work that the strata manager does on those larger buildings, even though you don't have any insurance claims in your smaller building. Elizabeth is saying all this means is the commission is not part of the contract. The contract will be changed over 3 years. It doesn't stop a commission or referral fee, correct? It just changes the standard contract. From there are no consequences or repercussions if a strata manager receives benefits. It's not a regulation or part of the legislation, so strata managers can still receive anything they like. Rightio. So yes, Elizabeth, that is the point that I've been wanting to highlight here today, and I'm glad to hear that that seems to be landing. Commissions is not the only thing that I believe we should be focused on, and it's also the case, you're exactly right, that this is a step, a leadership position that SCA New South Wales has taken. It is not the law yet. Maybe Productivity Commission might draw some conclusions, make some findings, and then our legislators can take that next step. But at the moment, it is something that if SCA members want to use the SCA agreement, and by the way, I believe their own agreements, if they don't use the template agreement, but they're using their own agreement, they still can't have a clause that allows them to receive insurance commissions. You're right, Elizabeth. As we understand it at the moment, it doesn't extend to other third-party payments and other third-party benefits that might be being received by strata managers. I think that strata management fees are inevitably, in a lot of cases, not all cases, but in a lot of cases, going to increase for owners. They are going to increase because businesses are not receiving this contribution to their bottom line. And for a lot of small businesses that I've spoken to, they've said, Amanda, the insurance commission is our profit. That's our profit. That's how we run a profitable business. And we can't afford to operate the way we currently do if we don't have those insurance commissions. Prices are going to go up inevitably. And some of you have said that on here on the page when I posted that media release. This just means prices are going to go up, or you've asked the question, does this mean that prices are going to go up? Yeah, I think that it probably does mean that. But does the price of our strata management services need to go up in order to provide or to continue to provide the service that you deserve as owners? And this is something that I talked about on the webinar that I hosted last week for strata managers, the Burnout to Boundaries webinar. We talked a lot about pricing, and I shared with the managers the results of a little impromptu survey that I had done here on the page. I put the call out. I called it throwing the hand grenade. I'd thrown the hand grenade and I'd taken cover. I asked you owners to answer a question for me. What is your single biggest challenge or frustration when it comes to your strata management services? And I said to you, let me know. Please share honestly. Don't name names. Share what you can. What is frustrating you about your strata management service? And you responded. I think we ended up with close to 50 comments in response, and they're public comments. So there are things that you were happy to share and to share with everybody. And for the purpose of the webinar, I was able to distill these down into what I call the top 3 frustrations of owners. And you were all saying things that were pretty similar. There was nothing too outlandish there, or nothing that sort of fell out of the common thread that was coming through in these responses. And I'm sharing with you here the slide that I prepared and I shared on the Burnout to Boundaries webinar last week. Top 3 owner frustrations. Number 1, poor communication and responsiveness from your strata manager. Oh my gosh, that just came up again and again and again. We email, we don't get responses. We call, we don't get responses. It takes 3 days. It takes 4 days. It takes 5. They don't get back to us at all. Number 1, frustration. Number 2, lack of knowledge, professionalism, and accountability. When they do respond to us, they don't know what they're talking about. I know more than they do about strata law, some of you said, which doesn't surprise me with this audience here. They don't give us advice. They just act like a postbox. They're just flicking emails back and forth. They're not showing us that they are of value to us. And number 3, lack of transparency. Complaints about getting access to records, complaints about getting information, feeling like there was a lack of transparency. Top 3 owner frustrations. Have you noticed what's not on the list? Price is not on the list. The cost of my strata management services is not on the list. That was not at all a frustration. I think in all of those comments that came through, we might have had one left of field comment about a particular charge that someone wasn't happy about, but price just did not come up when I asked this question of you. What is your frustration? And the conclusion that I drew in the webinar for our strata managers is that owners are happy to pay for strata management services. They are happy to pay for good strata management services. What they don't want to pay for, and what right now a lot of you feel like you're paying for when we look at these top 3 frustrations, is crap strata management service. You resent having to pay for bad service, but you're happy to pay for good service. And I laid out a bit of a challenge for the strata managers who were on that webinar. And I said, if you're brave and you respect your clients, why don't you ask them this question of what are their top challenges? What is their single biggest challenge or frustration or concern about your strata management service? See what comes back. See if it maybe fits into these categories. And then ask the question, if I could solve each of these frustrations for you, Would you pay more for our service? Would you pay more for our service if it meant that you were not going to have any of these frustrations? Because in order to get rid of all or some or one or three of these frustrations, money is required. For a business to be able to communicate well, to be responsive, to make sure that its employees are highly educated, professional, to make sure that they have proper systems and processes in place, that costs. It costs money to run businesses like that. And many lawyers can be all of these things, should be all of these things. And lawyers, I think increasingly, strata managers are being compared to lawyers. But lawyers charge sometimes 5, 6, 8 times more than what strata managers are charging. And those fees mean that we have more freedom, more ability, more access to support and services and structural supports to allow us to achieve these things. And if we're asking our strata managers to act more and more like lawyers, then we need to be paying them. We need to be paying them more. And when I said this on the webinar, we had a few owners on the webinar. Some of you might be here now as well because you love listening to this topic. You said, yes, Amanda, yes, that's exactly right. Look, I can see Kristen saying it now. Definitely happy to pay for good service and annoyed when the service is substandard. Yeah, that's and what I was encouraging managers on the webinar to do is to back themselves and to be confident about that. And if it helps you to be confident about that, have this conversation with your clients. And I think it would be a rare client who would say, no, I don't want any of these problems fixed. I actually want to pay less. I want to pay less and I want to continue to get poor communication, bad responsiveness. I want you to continue to be a bit of a dummy. Don't want you to have the knowledge. And if you've got clients like that, then they're not the clients for you. Strata managers are the commodity at the moment, the precious commodity. And I think we are going to see a big shift in the way that they see themselves, the way that they market themselves, and hopefully, especially if prices are going up, the service that they provide. Heading over to these comments. Hey, Shana, I see you coming in there. Elizabeth saying, Amanda, as you said, somewhere owners are not concerned about fees, they're concerned about service. I was in a mediation for 6 hours to get my strata manager to comply with the Act. I'd estimate the strata manager's fees for that exercise are about $5,000. Yeah, exactly. Kristen saying, based on the commissions being used to service the strata manager's admin services when there is an insurance claim, surely the work can fall into one of the scheduled fee categories and be invoiced as work that is done. Yeah, I think that's exactly what's going to happen, Kristen. So it will be fee for service. Fee for service. You pay for the insurance work that is being done for you. In some situations, I've seen where the strata manager receives the insurance commission and that's supposed to pay for the insurance work that they do. But there might not, as I said to Jeff earlier, there might not be any insurance work for your small building. So that's actually money that you are subsidizing another building's work. Or I've seen situations where the insurance work is still billed out under Schedule B, or some of that insurance work is still billed out under Schedule B charges, even though that insurance commission is there. So that's why these things get so messy, murky, muddy. And it's, in my view, I 100% support SCA New South Wales' position. I think it's fantastic. I nearly fell off my chair when I heard about the announcement, but I think it's well needed, and hats off to them. Hats off to them for taking that leadership position, for being brave, for being bold, taking that first step when they knew, I'm sure they knew that the flack that they were going to get from some players, maybe even some of their members, that they were going to lose members. I feel pretty comfortable in saying I think they're prepared for that. Jeff thinks owners don't want to pay for extra services. Committees do it themselves without knowledge of strata law, and then everyone blames the manager and NCAT gets to sort it out. Yeah, and who wins in that situation, Jeff? The strata lawyers. Yep. Kareem is saying, like all industries, due to automation, market expectations of humans has increased. That means only the best will survive. And that's what's happening in many other industries and will eventually happen to the strata industry. Following the bouncy ball is no longer considered to be suitable service delivery. Yeah, very well said, as always, Kareem. Thank you for that. Helen's saying, if the committee seems to bully the strata managers, they seem to back down. That's in a big complex. Not sure then what we're paying for. Insurance is compromised. And this is where professionalism comes in, Helen. A true professional cannot be bullied, right? That's our art form. That is our skill. That is our value as a professional. We cannot be bullied. But I agree with you. I see that happening in strata management. And this is, to Kareem's point, this is where we're going to see that separation between the average and the great, because we need more great strata managers and we need to value them and we need to be paying them their worth. All right. I'm going to move on. I want to keep getting into those comments, but I'm going to move on to our case for today because I don't want to leave you waiting too much longer for that. And if we have talked about the case and I've shared that with you and we have a little bit more time left, I will pop back into those comments to continue this discussion about your views on insurance commissions being banned and the fallout from that. Hey, Olivia, I see you coming in there. All righty. So what is our case for this week? I gave you the hint in the invitation email that it was about hard flooring and a New South Wales tribunal decision to direct a noisy upstairs owner, who was in this case, to put their carpet back, to cover their floors. I picked this one because this conversation is also happening in our member forum at the moment, as it does regularly. And I often have one-on-one calls with our members who are suffering in this kind of a situation. Noisy neighbours, it's a common one in Strata, and I think it will help many of you and our managers as well, who might find themselves or their clients in this position, to kind of see how this plays out in the tribunal. So I have for you on the screen, soon to be on the screen when I get my buttons right here, a copy of the case. It is a reported case. We have a link here for you where you can access the full case and have a read. It's not a super long one. It's only on my screen here about 9 pages. It is a decision of a single member of the tribunal. And the case, look, I'm going to go with Cyric, could be Chirik, and the owners of Strata Plan number 67113 and Blanche. So we've got 2 respondents there. We've got the Owners Corporation and then we have somebody called Blanche. Is that another lot owner is what I think when I read a case name like that. Decision made in April 2025. And I have, as I like to do for our sessions, highlighted the important parts or the parts that I want to summarize today of this decision. And we will have this highlighted copy of the case linked in our member forum. Rochelle will help me out with that one within the next few days, I think. So what's happened here? We have an applicant who is the owner of Lot 2 in the Strata scheme. The respondent is the Owners Corporation, and the second respondent, that's Blanche, is the owner of Lot 17. And it turns out that Lot 2 is below Lot 17. And Lot 2 is the applicant. They're the ones suffering from noise. Flooring has been installed in Lot 17, so the upstairs. It does not comply, says the applicant, with the Strata scheme's bylaw that applies to flooring installed in lots within the Strata scheme. So we know that there is a bylaw that is relevant to flooring. Applicant says Lot 17 did not comply with this bylaw. At the hearing, the applicant said that she was seeking orders against the second respondent, so the owner of Lot 17, that's Blanche, for the removal of the flooring that had been installed in the lot and asking for the lot's compliance with the relevant bylaw. And the applicant did not press for any orders against the Owners Corporation. So while the Owners Corporation was originally named in the application, and as it turns out, the Owners Corporation were the only ones who turned up to the hearing with the applicant, Lot 17, Blanche, did not turn up to the hearing. The applicant said, no, I'm not going to press for anything against the Owners Corporation. I'm going to let them off the hook. I'm only seeking orders against the lot owner. So this is something that I see quite commonly in these cases. Owners complaining about noise, asking me the question, Amanda, who do I sue? And it's something that you do have to think hard about. If you are suing the Owners Corporation, why are you suing the Owners Corporation? Has there been a failure to properly repair the common property for example. Does the owners corporation really have anything to do with this noise that is coming from upstairs? It's rarely, I have to say, rarely the case that an owners corporation should be joined as a respondent in these kinds of proceedings. Usually, yes. If you are a lot owner making this application, you're usually just listing your noisy neighbour as the respondent to the application. And you do need to also think about whether you're listing the owner of the lot as the respondent or the resident of the lot. You'd be listing the owner of the lot if the owner had done work, for example, that didn't comply with a bylaw, which is the case in this, or part of the case in this case here. But if it's a proceeding where you're complaining about noise that's coming out of the lot, somebody is making unreasonable noise, whether it's walking on hard floors or whether it's having late night parties, that's usually the resident of the lot. And where you've got a tenanted lot, that matters because the owner is not necessarily the same person as the resident. So just be really careful about that in noise disputes and noise complaints, that you are suing the right person. That's the first thing I want to say. Moving on to what happened at the hearing, the applicant appeared for herself and there were no lawyers involved in this case. I usually do like to pull out and share with you these cases where everyone's self-represented. They're often more interesting. Everyone appeared for themselves. The first respondent, remember the owners corporation, was represented by their strata manager. And the second respondent, Blanche, the owner of lot 17, did not turn up. Didn't turn up to the hearing at all. Sometimes that happens. They had apparently filed some material, so they knew about the case, but they just didn't turn up to the hearing. The tribunal said, we're going ahead anyway. We're going to go ahead in the absence of the second respondent, that lot owner, and I'm just going to hear what this applicant has to say. And also the tribunal did ask the strata manager some questions as well, just to understand a little bit of the history about what happened with these floors. So that's what the decision goes on to talk a bit about that. Lot 2, the applicant's lot, is immediately under lot 17 in the building, but lot 2 is a lot smaller than lot 17. So 17 has a bigger floor area, kitchen, dining, living, and part of the balcony of lot 17 sits above all of lot 2. So the bedrooms, the hallway, I think, the bathrooms of lot 17 are not above lot 2. So it's only these parts here that are above lot 2. And that becomes relevant to the order and where the carpet has to go, or the floors have to be covered again in lot 17. Applicant's been in their lot 2 for about 20 years and working from lot 2 for over 2.5 years. Now, in my experience, I think that this is where we're seeing and why we're seeing a lot more questions about noise in strata coming through and more of these types of applications and complaints, because so many more people are at home now, much more often since the pandemic. Many of us have got used to working at home. We're able to work at home because our employers permit that. More people are using their homes in different ways to the way that they did even just 5 or 6 years ago. And noise is becoming a much more of a concern in strata than it ever has before. So the bylaw in question, remember, this is about, did lot 17 comply with a bylaw about flooring? What did the bylaw say? It's special bylaw number 8, and it has conditions for owners who want to install a floor finish other than carpet in their lots. Before they start work, they have to do some things, give the owners corporation some things. We're not too worried about that requirement of the bylaw because in this case, the work has been done. But also under this bylaw, the owner must ensure that all the floor space is covered or otherwise treated to an extent sufficient to prevent the transmission of noise. Many of you will be familiar with those words. That's our model bylaw about flooring that many of us will have as part of our bylaws. Floors have to be covered to the extent sufficient to prevent the transmission of noise and to likely to disturb the peaceful enjoyment of someone else. And in this case, this bylaw went further to say, ensure that the flooring is insulated with soundproofing underlay as specified by the owners corporation from time to time, and then must have reach these minimum standards as well. So a pretty detailed bylaw there about flooring and the type of standard that has to be achieved. Some of you will have something similar, probably not most of you or not many of you will have a bylaw this detailed about flooring. Strata committees those who might be concerned about noise from flooring, you might want to have a look at this one and have a think about whether this might be suitable for your building, because it is this bylaw that really saves the day for the suffering Lot 2 owner in this case. Now, importantly, owner is defined in this bylaw to extend to any successors or transferees of the owner. So an owner who is the owner at the time they install the flooring, this bylaw applies to them. And if you are a future owner and you have had this flooring installed at your lot by someone else who owned the lot before you, this bylaw also applies to you because of the way that owner has been defined. And this becomes relevant because the respondent to these proceedings is not the person who installed the floor. Lot 17 was sold and purchased by somebody else quite close to these proceedings commencing. And so this purchaser, this new owner, has kind of has fallen into this situation where they've bought and suddenly they are the subject of proceedings about a floor that they did not install. And because of the way this bylaw is worded, the bylaw can be enforced against them. Because of this part here, the owner must ensure that all floor space, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't say the owner who is doing the work has to make sure that the work reaches these standards. It is the owner, whoever they may be from time to time, has to ensure that their floors are covered and has to ensure that the flooring meets these standards. So if you're buying in to a unit with a hard floor and it doesn't look like that hard floor is original, check the bylaws and check that you aren't going to be subject to some standard that you're not sure has been met. Important tip there. All right, so it was June 22 when the former owner, the then owner of Lot 17, submitted their application for the installation of new flooring. There was some debate about when that got approved. It's not all that relevant to the final decision. Approval was given in April 2023. Even before then, the applicant was complaining about noise that was coming from Lot 17 and impacting her. The Owners Corporation did send a bylaw breach letter related to excessive noise and also things being tossed over the balcony, landing on the courtyard of the units below. By February 2024, Lot 17 had been sold. New owner in Lot 17. In March, welcome to the building. 2 weeks after settling, this new owner gets a notice requesting confirmation of compliance with Special Bylaw 8. Would have been a letter saying under Bylaw 8, you're required to make sure that your floor reaches these acoustic standards. Please confirm that it does. Poor new owner of Lot 17 might have got a bit of a shock with that one. And there needs to be acoustic testing to ensure the flooring meets those bylaw requirements. Interesting here, the Owners Corporation pays for this acoustic testing to then happen at Lot 17. So lucky for the applicant here, it sounds like the Owners Corporation is on board with trying to get the applicant's peaceful enjoyment returned to her. There is an acoustics report, and the result of the acoustic report is, somebody technical will tell me what that means, but it's something about the decibels that the measurement of sound in decibels was 51. And I didn't point this out to you earlier, but Special Bylaw 8 says it can't be more than 40. So there is a breach of Special Bylaw 8 here. The acoustic report has revealed that. Tribunal said, I accept the report. It is strictly not in the form of expert evidence. It doesn't comply with procedural direction number 3, but these proceedings are not ones where an expert report is required to comply with procedural direction 3. This is another thing I like to point out to those who are self-representing or not used to litigating in the tribunal. If you do need to submit an expert report, just check whether there's been a specific direction from the tribunal that your expert report must comply with procedural direction number 3. They don't always. The tribunal doesn't always issue that direction. And if they don't issue that direction, then your expert report can be, a little lighter, a little less formal, a little more flexible, perhaps, and doesn't have to be in that very strict form that procedural direction number 3 requires it to be in. I've been in situations before where I've had lawyers for owners corporations tell me, your client's expert report is inadmissible because it doesn't comply with procedural direction number 3. And I've said, well, it doesn't need to. It doesn't need to. Those directions don't apply unless you're in certain, I think, home building proceedings or certain other proceedings that procedural direction will specify, or if the tribunal makes a direction that your report has to comply with procedural direction number 3. So just be alert to that one. If you're a bit worried about having to get a very formal expert's report, you might not have to. So tribunal accepted that expert's report, said, yep, this flooring is in breach of the bylaw. Lot 17 put some soft door closers, laid rugs on the living room following the mediation, so trying to reach a resolution there. Ultimately, a notice to comply is issued by the owners corporation. Only an owners corporation can issue a notice to comply with special bylaw number 8. That obviously doesn't work because the applicant goes to the tribunal. And I don't know any history of this. I don't know these people. It may be the case that the applicant was trying to get the owners corporation to start proceedings to seek a penalty order for failure to comply with the notice to comply. And maybe she didn't get anywhere, and so she had to start her own proceedings. The thing to note there is that is possible. And I gave this guidance in our member forum earlier today. It is possible for one lot owner to sue another lot owner and not involve the owners corporation at all when we're talking about this kind of a situation where we've got noise from hard floors and there's clearly a breach of the bylaws. Then yes, the tribunal can help out in a dispute between two lot owners. The orders that you seek are under section 232 and section 241 of the Strata Schemes Management Act. Tribunal says there's no evidence that there was compliance with the requirements of the bylaw when the flooring went in. The then owner of lot 17 did not install flooring that complied with that bylaw. It is appropriate to make an order under those sections of the Act because the impact that noise is having and is likely to continue to have on the applicant. So the installation never complied with the bylaw to start with, and the owner under the bylaw, which is the current owner, is not currently complying with that bylaw because their flooring has failed the acoustic test. The second respondent, lot 17, can achieve compliance with special bylaw 8 by laying a floor covering on the relevant areas such as carpet or underlay, or treating the floors or removing or replacing them with flooring that does comply with special bylaw 8. However they do it, they can do it their way, but they've got to make sure that they comply with those requirements in special bylaw 8, and they've got 60 days within which to do that. And this was really clever. And hats off to the applicant if she asked for this. It is appropriate to make ancillary orders, so extra orders, requiring the lot 17 to obtain an acoustic report testing and certifying that any floor coverings or new floor installed by the owner to achieve the required standard, and requiring the applicant to allow access so testing can be carried out. So fix it and then test it again and make sure that it passes the next test. Often a step that is missed, even when parties go through litigation like this. We're going to fix it and then we're going to make sure it complies with the bylaw. How do we do that? Well, we have an order that there must be another test carried out. So that's our case for today on hard flooring. There's lots of good things in that case. What looks like a really great bylaw from an owners corporation perspective, from a committee perspective, being really clear about what our standards are when it comes to hard flooring. An applicant, lot owner, who was ready and willing to go into bat for her rights and her peaceful enjoyment when perhaps maybe her owners corporation was standing back a little bit and said, look, we've issued the letter, we've issued the notice to comply, we're really not going to take this any further. We don't want to incur legal fees. We don't want to be the applicant in proceedings. But that lot owner recognizing that she had rights to pursue this herself and doing that successfully before the tribunal. Couple of comments here in the chat, which I want to get to quickly about the case. Jeff saying good bylaws set equal standards which are ongoing. You have to feel sympathy for the new owner. They were probably not advised. And the seller simply says buyer beware. Yep. Really, really important lesson there. I think if you're going into an apartment and you can see, you're looking at purchasing and you can see that there's been a renovation, whether it's a new kitchen, new bathroom, new tiling, flooring is a big one, check those bylaws and see if there is a bylaw that is approving your specific renovation, or if there's a standard bylaw about flooring or waterproofing or kitchens or bathrooms that places obligations on you that you need to be aware of. Elaine saying, can a bylaw be retrospective? In this case, if the bylaw was passed after the installation of the floor. Oh, that's a good question, Elaine. If the bylaw was passed after the installation of the floor, it's phrased in that way. It is phrased in that way that the owner has to ensure. Well, I don't know that it is. I think it says, but I'm just going back to it on my other screen. I don't have the whole bylaw is the short answer to that. Before commencement of the work, the owner has to do certain things, and then the owner must ensure. So it is still referring to the same work. It's not sort of a bylaw that says if you've got a hard floor of any type, it has to comply with these conditions. It says if you have got approval to do this work, so tick, lot 17 did, and then if you have this floor in place, so you've got to meet those two conditions. You've done the work, got approval and done the work, and then ongoing, the floor has to meet these conditions. So in that way, it doesn't operate retrospectively. And yeah, I think you might have a problem where you had if everyone had hard floors, and then you imposed a requirement that the hard floors had to reach a certain standard, which then required the owners to do work to them. You might well need the owner's consent before you imposed that kind of a condition on them, especially if the work they have to do is going to affect the common property. Then you absolutely need owner consent before you give them responsibility for doing common property work. Great question. The lawyerly answer is it depends. Emily's saying, what about noise from loading dock for mixed lots like Woolworths? And the trolley cages are known to wear out the floor and they can't do anything about it. Yeah, the interesting thing about this case, Emily, was this is a mixed use, I didn't say this, but a mixed use commercial residential building. So that maybe there was some other noise as well, not mentioned in the case. But your situation, that's not the first time that I have heard owners in mixed use with shops like a Woolworths close by making these complaints. The problem with our more modern buildings where you have commercial or retail like that downstairs is that they are probably a separate strata plan. It's probably a stratum subdivision. So there is a residential stratum lot and a commercial stratum lot. The residential is then subdivided into its own strata plan, and the commercial might either be its own strata plan or it might just be a stratum standalone lot that's owned by a retail owner like a Woolworths or the council or an institutional investor. And when you've got that stratum subdivision, then the residential generally can't tell the commercial what to do. They're not subject to, the commercial's not subject to the same residential bylaws. And the instrument that regulates your relationship is the strata management statement. So the strata management statement is the place to go to see if there's an answer to this question, what about noise, whether there's any rules in the strata management statement about noise, or whether you can take it up with the building management committee, the BMC, that administers that strata management statement and is supposed to make sure that that relationship between the commercial and the residential all happens smoothly. The BMC is responsible for receiving complaints about complaints and disputes and trying to resolve disputes. Really, really tricky situation where you've got a stratum subdivision because you can't go to the tribunal to get this kind of thing sorted out as easily, or go to the tribunal at all to get these things sorted out. You may have to go to a court to work out disputes under the strata management statement. So again, a buyer beware, something to be aware of if you're buying into a community that has a stratum subdivision, and there is another document called a strata management statement, making sure you understand what that will be. Emily saying, will this be live on the forum? So we always have our recordings of our Friday lives in our member video library, Emily, if that's what you're asking me. And this copy of the case, yes, the highlighted copy of the case will go into our member forum as well. And if you're in the forum, Emily or Elaine, please do bring this conversation over there, and that's where I will be more than happy to continue it. Knew it was going to be a hot topic for you. I didn't get back around to those other comments about commissions. Russ, I can see a comment there from you. I'm going to come back to that one later this evening and have a read. Thank you for your contribution. But I'm going to wrap up there now. I'm only 4 minutes over time, trying to talk fast, tried to fit in lots today. Have a great weekend in Strata. As I said, I'll be joining some fellow Strata lawyers, having a chat to our Productivity Commission on Monday. And thank you to those colleagues and friends of mine who have also agreed to do the same and to make sure that our government is armed with as much information as possible to make the best decision for everyone in Strata on this question of insurance commissions. Thanks for tuning in. Catch up with you all again soon. Bye for now.